If I'm going to invest my time and my energy and trying to figure out something as nuanced and complex as the online space is, and I think that's actually where, number one, most coaches get it wrong. They underestimate how nuanced and complex the online space can be.
Hi, Amber.
Hi, it's so good to see you.
It's always so good to see you. I'm so glad that we're going to get to do this. And selfishly, I just get some time with you, which is always makes me happy.
I mean, same girl, same.
Aw, okay. Well, I want to just dive into the goodness. We met through my mastermind, which we'll talk about in a moment, but that's
Mhm,
how we kind of originally, well, we connected online before that and we're
mhm.
chatting. But why I want you to talk about today is that I've loved your journey and I've loved your journey of growth as an entrepreneur and really kind of how you got to where you are, because I think it's very relatable. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about what you do in the coaching space, why you were drawn to the specific type of coaching that you provide, and kind of what initially got you into here.
Yes, I would love, love, love to. Yeah, I think my journey, it's not, and I know a lot of coaches say this, right? And I think so many coaches, how we get to where we are is from our own experiences and what we lived and our struggles. And so for me, really how I got into my specific niche is I work with women, specifically working moms, to achieve sustainable weight loss and a healthy lifestyle. I think working moms have their own set of struggles. We as women are wearing so many hats these days. As a working entrepreneurial mom myself, I can absolutely relate to that. And so much of how I even landed on sustainable weight loss is I struggled my entire life with that. I was from a very young age, I became a dieter at the age of like 15. This really progressed to a very unhealthy relationship with my body and with myself, to where I was bulimic in my 20s. I healed from the physical aspect of binging and purging, but I never really healed from the mental part of it. And so this really just unhealthy, these destructive patterns and in myself just continued all through my 20s into my 30s. I became a mom. I had, really from the outside looking in, like the picture perfect life. I had a very successful husband who I'd known since I was 7. I had 2 beautiful children. But when I was pregnant with both kids, I gained like 65, 70 pounds. And it's because I pretty much used those 9 months of being pregnant as like a 9-month binge session, because I had been restrictive and being on diets my entire life, so tied to the external and how my body looked. After I had the babies, I lost weight, of course, but it was really in a very unhealthy way, especially because as I was in my mid 30s, now my body's starting not to respond the same way it did in my like 20s. And so it was really hard. In addition, I had a very successful career in sales. Again, the outside looking in, right? The outside looking in, it was great. I could do it in my sleep, and I made a lot of money doing it. But as I was approaching the age of 40, all of a sudden my life imploded. My marriage completely fell apart. I was really very, very unhappy in my job because I was so unfulfilled. I knew I was meant for so much more. I just felt very stuck. And I was also very, very unhappy in my body. I was tired of being a slave to food. I was tired of hating myself, the way that I looked. I said enough's enough. And at the age of 40, I was getting ready to turn 40, and I was in the middle of all this chaos with like my marriage falling apart and all of it. And I decided for my 40th birthday, instead of going to like a girls gone wild trip to Cabo, which I was supposed to do for my 40th, okay, I decided that I was going to take a reflective trip to Costa Rica and to a yoga retreat. And on that trip, my intention for going on the trip was, even though I had all these things going on, it was really that particular trip. My intention was, what do I want to do with my career? What do I want? I'm getting ready to turn 40. What do I want then my next, however many working years to look like? Something's got to give. And that is on a very, very just enlightening moment meditating on the beach. I heard the call and the voice, which was I was supposed to be a coach. And I will tell you at that point in time, I think this is very important for anybody listening who is considering starting a business, who wants to become an entrepreneur, is not sure where to go. Like, you don't always have to have all the answers. You just have to be rooted in your why. And so for me, I didn't have all the answers even of like what I was even going to coach on. I knew my why, and I also just felt my purpose of like I felt in my soul that my purpose was to help other women to get unstuck. And at that moment, I didn't know I was going to be a weight loss coach. Are you kidding me? I was so in my own stuff about hating my own body. The thought of coaching other women how to do that, forget it. Like, there's no way. All I knew is that in my soul, I was meant to help other women grow and live their best dang life. And that's all I knew. And so I came back though. And I think what's really important also to take away is that once you know that why, it's just about taking action, even if it's small actions. When I got back, I sat and I got quiet and I really started to just think about like, what am I interested in? What lights me up? This is what brought me back to the health and wellness piece of it. And so long story longer, I just ended up enrolling in a year-long integrative nutrition program. Again, even at this time, I didn't even know that I was going to focus on weight loss and fitness and all of that because I had my own healing journey to do. But along the way, as I was healing, it was coming more clear to me what I was supposed to be doing and exactly who I was supposed to be helping. And so I started my company right before the pandemic hit. And that's really what brought me here.
Oh, I love your story so much, and thank you for sharing all of that because I think it needs to be one that even though people may hear it from other people at times of like how they got to where they are, we can never hear it enough.
Mhm.
And I think that yours is just one of not only resilience, but just possibility of, I think so many people make up and tell themselves that in order to be a successful coach or to be successful online or to create something that they've wanted to do, they have to be a certain age or they have to be a certain look or they have to, have a certain amount of, numbers in the bank account or they have to have this or they have to have that. And I love how your journey and just what you just reminded us about, like, you didn't even know what it was going to look like. You just knew that there was this deeper calling that you had to follow and that more was being revealed as you did that. And so I would love for you to kind of share what it was like, the good, the bad, the scary parts of like you leaving this quote unquote safe job, you leaving this quote unquote safe, what you envisioned like your family looking like in your marriage and like all of this stuff that was happening at the same time. It's like you're leaving that behind to step into something new. And so what did have to change, Amber, with your mindset, with your emotions, with healing all of that, with your belief in yourself? What are those things that had to start to change so you could really start to see results from all the actions that you were putting behind what you were doing?
Oh, such a good question. And I will tell you, like, as you're asking that question, like so many things are coming up for me. I think, and the word that kept coming up for me as you're speaking was the word trust. Not only trusting that I was like headed in that I was doing the right thing, that I was where I was supposed to be, but also trusting myself. I will say that when I started my company, I didn't just go off immediately and quit my, multiple six-figure sales job. I did not do that. I worked both jobs for almost a year. It was fortunately my previous job was a sales job, so I had some flexibility there. But I got to tell you, I was working. I mean, to the bone. I was working like, 14-hour days. I was so committed though. Like, my drive was so strong. And so finally, it just got to the point for me where I realized that I was holding myself back, that I was never really going to give this coaching business a fair shot if I was, working the other job as well. When I decided to leave my very successful sales job, my divorce had just gotten finalized. So now I'm really on my own. And to walk away from this, like I said, very cush job and step fully into this coaching, it was scary. It was super scary. I was terrified. But I'll never forget having a conversation with my brother. And there was two things that I walked away from that conversation which is one, look at how far I've come. And I'm a very spiritual person. So for me, I felt like God had shown me enough to where even though he didn't show me everything, I didn't have all the answers. He had shown me enough. I was at least 51% sure. I was at least 51% sure that this is where I was supposed to be. And so for me, that was enough. I trusted that he had shown me enough and created a path light enough for me that this is where I was supposed to go. But the other part of it is that my brother said to me, Amber, you can always go back. You can always go back and get another job. You know how to make money. You can always go back. And I thought, okay, I'm scared as heck. So I think number one, it was trusting myself. You asked the mindset changes. I think trusting myself, looking at the evidence in order to not sometimes taking a leap of faith, not just that a leap of faith, but it's also just looking at the evidence to relieve the fear, right? Like, what's the evidence that I've been successful? And I would say another piece of it too, and this was something that I really suffered from a lot in the beginning, which I think a lot of new entrepreneurs suffer from. But even, it's so funny. This even came up for me today. Even this morning, I was thinking about it, but it's the whole imposter syndrome. That was something for me that I really had to let go because in the beginning, when you're really trying to make a name, and I'm still trying to make a name for myself, right? I'm still trying to, in this online space that's very competitive, when you are trying to really get across to the world that you are an expert in your field, it's very normal to like second guess everything that you say. It's very normal to, fear that, look at, people who are ahead of you, other entrepreneurs, other people in your space, in your niche, and feel less than and feel like, again, that imposter syndrome come up. And so I think for me, those are the two, biggest things were just like learning to trust myself and also really working through imposter syndrome.
I would love for you to kind of share a little bit more about the context of those things. And so I love that you shared the mindset, but I know that something that trips people up is like, how did you get to the other side of the failures? Or like, what did the struggles look like? Or, if there were some months that you hit your money goal and there are other months that you didn't hit your money goal, especially in the beginning, like how did you keep moving forward? And I guess maybe, I don't know if it was blinders or what it was for you to get you over those initial humps to where you don't quickly psych yourself out and say, okay, well, let me just go apply to some corporate job that I don't want.
I think for me, it was, well, number one, it's in my nature to not be a quitter. Like I can't like sometimes sometimes to my detriment. Okay. Like sometimes there are some things that I should walk away from that I don't. One of the biggest things is that I was so, and I am so proud of what I had built, even in the beginning when I was having those months where maybe I'd had a great month before. And then all of a sudden now I'm, looking at my bank account and I'm like, oh my gosh. And you can start to go into that scarcity feeling and it can bring up a lot of fear. And again, I think it was really rooting into for me personally, it was really rooting into that trust. It was really rooting into that. Yes, this month is not looking great, but let's detach the emotions. And this is still a hard one for me. I still have to practice this one all the time. In business is detaching the emotion from a launch, from that sales call where they said no, video on social media that got some negative comments or whatever. I think it can be very easy to be so emotionally involved. But when you're so emotionally involved, I think that it really blinds you from being able to look at the data and being able to course correct and maybe do things a little bit differently. So I think for me, it was definitely, rooting into like trusting where I'm at. And also, I will say this too. I just want to back this up a little bit too and just say that one of the things too that did help me is that in my other sales job, I was 100% commission based as well. So that piece for me of always having to, eat what I kill has been ingrained for me for a very long time. Now, I know somebody listening to this who maybe came from a sales job that had a salary and all of that, that can feel very scary. And I totally understand that. But again, this is where I think just leaning into, again, trusting where you've been, but then also being able to go back and look at the data, look back and see what worked, what didn't work, and being able to self-correct and move forward.
So, walk us through a little bit about how, if you can remember, how you figured out like who is my ideal woman and what does she need from me and how am I providing that? Because I know that that's always like a huge one for women when they're like, okay, I'm going to start this thing, but like I don't even know what to do or what to offer or who I'm talking to. Walk us through how you discovered that, because in the beginning you said like, I know that I'm supposed to be a coach, but I don't even know what this is going to look like. So how did you really start to niche down and specialize in the healthy weight loss for that specific type of woman?
Yeah, so I'll never forget this conversation and how I arrived to this. So it was like a few months in to my company and I was working with a business coach. There's always one thing I want to share with entrepreneurs who are just getting going, like the things that I did wrong that I wish I did differently. And like one of the things that I always share is right before I really launched my company and before I got clear on exactly who I was helping. This is why this is so important because to everybody listening, you have to get clear on who you're helping before you go and design programs and build a website and do all the things. And I'm not just talking about like generally, I'm talking like super specific niche down because when I first started, I was like, oh, I just want to help women who are in their 30s just to like not feel so overwhelmed and, resentful. And I just want to like help them to be less stressed and to just live a better life. Now that I'm so in the online space, I'm like, that's so general and generalized. No wonder I wasn't getting any traction. And so, but I had went and I had built a $5,000 website. I mean, literally dropped 5K on a website, designed all these programs, did this whole thing, and nothing was happening. And so I'll never forget this conversation. The business coach I was working with, and we were having this like heart to heart. And I was like, I just don't understand. Like, I'm not getting traction. I have no clients. And she's like, well, who do you help? And I went through this whole thing. She's like, she's like, that's too general. And she said, well, I just don't know. I don't know how to get specific. And she says, what do people come to you for? Like, I'm not talking about in business, like in life. It's a great place to start. Like, what do people come to you for? And I was like, well, people have always come to me for like fitness and like eating well, because it's always been my passion, even though on the inside, I was like living this like very destructive life around those things. But on the outside, people would come to me about health and wellness advice and all of that. And she's like, that's what you need to lean into. And I was like, what? I was like, I can't. And then, of course, for me, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that because I am such a mess when it comes to that. And this is what started like the entire thing. And this is what started. And so, what I realized though from that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly why I'm supposed to heal myself with this so that I can help other women with this. And that is really where it started for me, was just getting really honest of like what people come to me for, where are my talents. And also I think, what did I enjoy? What lit me up? And it was the health and wellness. The reason why I was so blocked to it was because it was my own stuff that I needed to heal.
That's so good, and I think it's just I know it can sound really simple, but it's the thing that I think trips so many women up, and I love that you said, like, "Before I started a website, before I started making offers, before I got worried about this thing and that thing, and what should my brand name be, and what should my logo colors be?" It's like, get clear on who you're actually showing up for and, like, who you're going to be selling to, because that is what is going to sustain you over time, not your logo, not your website, not any all of that stuff can come. So I love
Yes.
that you shared that, and you also shared something that I picked up on. You said that you were talking to to a coach at the time that was helping you map this out, but you were only a few months into your business.
Mm.
So I would love to hear about why and how you decided to hire a coach so early on, because I think that there's this other idea, misconception, myth, whatever it is, that someone has to be further along in their business before they can invest in their business. Or people make up and tell themselves that, I'm not ready for I need to go and figure this out myself first. I need to figure out who I serve first myself. I need to figure out what I'm offering first myself. I need to figure out how I'm going to be marketing myself first before I go and invest in a coach, without realizing that it's actually investing in someone who specializes in those things that helps you figure that out. And I see so many women, and I know you do too, Amber,
Yeah.
that just stay on a lot of them for years. Like, I have people coming to me now that were like, I've been following you since 2019. And I'm like, 2019? Like, what have you been doing for the last 4 years? And they're like, well, I just kept making up and telling myself that I needed to figure this out before I was ready. And it's like, well, what do you think gets you ready? So I would love just to hear your experience with that, and why you made the decision so early on. And I know your journey, and I know that you've always been an advocate in just getting the support and, believing
Mhm.
that, even all coaches need coaches. So I would love to hear your journey about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's exactly right. Number one, all coaches do need coaches, but you hit it spot on. It's like that. I think that story we create for ourselves, like, oh, I just need to figure it out myself, or oh, I need to be further along in order to have a coach. Like, it's actually backwards. That's completely backwards. Well, number one, just giving further insight into my personality. Like, I don't have patience to just settle in mediocrity. Like, this is why I got the $5,000 website. Okay. Now, I'm not saying all of my decisions are, smart. That one was not smart. Getting a coach was, though. But for me, I'm always like, listen, if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to halfway do it, right? Like I'm going to do it. And so for me, I was like, if I'm going to invest my time and my energy and trying to figure out something as nuanced and complex as the online space is. And I think that's actually where, number one, most coaches get it wrong. They underestimate how nuanced and complex the online space can be. Now, I don't say that if you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting online, I don't want to say that to scare you. I just say that to this is all the more reason why you should hire an expert who can guide you through this process, because you will waste a lot of time trying to figure out the online space and online marketing. It's unlike any other thing. I mean, when I first got going, I was like, oh, I just like, once I just like I'll just turn on the website and everything, then I'll just start getting hits. People start, messaging me for coaching. That is obviously so not what happens. Like I said, the online space, it can be daunting and there's a lot to learn. And so I think for me, it was really just really seeing the value in investing in somebody that was further along than me, because basically I wanted the cliff notes. I didn't want to have to figure it all out by myself. I wanted the cliff notes to where somebody who could guide me, give me the support, the reassurance, somebody I could bounce ideas off of, somebody that I could brainstorm with, so that I had the confidence to know that I was on the right track, so that I could stay in my lane, which, in my zone of genius with the coaching and all of that. I didn't want to have to be distracted of whether, worrying about, this, hey, was this freebie? Was this a good choice? Like whatever that looked like. I just wanted to have like the support, knowing that that was good. I was on the right track and I could focus on the things that I love to do, in building my business and coaching and all of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's perfect. And speaking of which, dive us into what your business is, who you serve, what it looks like, how you show up in the world to support the amazing women that you do.
I am coaching working moms in the sustainable weight loss space. So, for the woman that I serve, she's the woman that is like, you know what? It's not that I don't know how to lose weight. Like, I've read every book, I've done every diet, I've watched every YouTube video, I've done all of it. I'm just struggling to make it a seamless and like effortless part of my life. I am a working mom. I have, worrying about counting my macros and counting my calories and all that. That's not important to me. And in fact, I don't even have the brain space to deal with that anymore, because I have all these other things that are important to me. And so I just want to lose the weight and I want to keep it off, and I don't want to have to diet, and I don't want to have to, miss out on, that glass of wine that I want, or, that chocolate. I just want it to be, more effortless and a lifestyle. And that's really, the woman that I serve. And so, uh, for me, I think what makes me a little bit different in this space, and I think this is what serves me because I've lived this life. The way that I coach, it is through lifestyle transformation. So we are leading with more of the mindset, the food relationship, and learning to make yourself a priority before we even get to the nutrition and the exercise and all of that. Because the truth is that diets teach you to go double down on nutrition and exercise, and we can do that as focused, high achieving women. We could just double down on the food and the exercise. But after a while, once that's done, then slowly but surely, if we've done nothing to change our beliefs and our, patterns and our habits and all of that, we go right back to doing what we were doing, which is why the weight comes back. And so the way that I teach weight loss, it's through that sustainable lens, which starts with the mindset piece of it. That's who I serve for helping women.
And this is the holiday season, and I know that that can bring up a lot emotionally for women, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to food, family dynamics, drinking, all of those things.
Mhm.
Is there any kind of tips that you can share with those, just through the work that you do, and anything, any kind of gleams that we can take from you today on like how to approach a season like this, if that is something that historically has been a challenge for anyone that's listening?
Yeah, I talk a lot about this in my practice, and again, this goes back to I can speak to this because I lived this. Every like Thanksgiving, it was like I was oscillating between having like so much anxiety or just be throwing my hands up and being like, I'm gonna just get it between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And then come New Year's, I'm gonna start over. Like I don't even want to have to deal with the stress of trying to eat quote healthy. I'm just gonna, be on that kind of that binge cycle and I'll start over in January. One of the biggest things for women is really starting to lose this like all or nothing or perfectionist type of mentality when it comes to your nutrition and your exercise. And if you are somebody who struggles going into the holidays, like worried that you're going to mess up or you're going to overdo it or whatever that looks like, it's really just letting go of this like all or nothing. I got to start over tomorrow. I'm going to start over in January. Just letting that go and just really focusing on the mantra of progress over perfection. One of my favorite books is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talks about just being 1% better, 1% better each and every day. And so, waking up every day and really just intentionally going throughout your day about what can you do to fuel your body and what can you do just to be 1% better. And I think when you can really approach your health and wellness through that, it does eliminate a lot of the up and down roller coasters, especially that the holidays can bring. The other thing that I will say that can be helpful is really losing the mentality that like this is your only chance to like get it in. And what I mean by that is like I've heard somebody, give the example of like holiday cookies. Well, I ate 10 holiday cookies because God knows when I'm going to get those gingerbread cookies again. So this is my time to like get it in, and then for a lot of women that can start the shame and the guilt and all of that. And this is really what I want to remind you of. Girl, you can make those gingerbread cookies 364 other days of the year. Okay. Like let that story go. That is a story you've created for yourself. Okay. Any sort of food story that you've created this food scarcity, that this is your only time, whether it's holiday specific or whatever that is, that's a lie. Let that go. You actually can eat that cookie anytime you want. But because you spend the other 364 days of the year telling yourself you can't, then now that's why you've created that story. So just I want you to have a reframe and just say to yourself, I always tell my clients the answer is always yes. Okay. First, when you can tell yourself yes first, you actually move out of that monkey brain, that part of your brain that just tells yourself no, 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 no. And you can actually move into a more rational part of your brain that allows you to make decisions that are aligned with your goals. And if you don't believe me, just try it. I call it the power of permission. Okay. The power of permission. So that's what I want you to try this holiday season.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that juicy tidbit, and that big takeaway. The next thing that I want to dive in, and again, just we've heard your journey. It's not always rainbows and butterflies, but you've talked the talk and you've walked the walk. And me just knowing you, I mean, I just know that it's always an evolution of growth, and that's why I love you and your story and your journey so much. I would love for you to share just what your experience has been, because I haven't been your only coach. I had the honor of being your coach through our mastermind in 2023, but would love to hear a little bit more about, the idea of a mastermind, what you love about it, what that experience is like, how it may be different than just one-on-one coaching or, a one-off thing that somebody may do here or a retreat there. But really how that has been a service to you and to your business, and anyone out there that maybe they've been on the fence about, getting support, getting a coach, joining a mastermind, whatever that is for them, ways to really help them see the other side of it, even with all of the fears and excuses that can come up.
Yeah, I first got introduced into a mastermind a couple years ago, and I will never go back to just like one on one coaching. For me, a mastermind is absolutely where it's at. Number one, I will just say some of the friendships that I have formed in these masterminds are lifelong friendships. So that's just like the personal side of it. But number two, from a business standpoint, what an incredible opportunity to not only network, obviously, with others in your space, even if they're in different industries, just like, kind of in the trenches in the online space, but what you learn from what other people are going through in a one-on-one environment, you don't get that. You don't get that. But like, for instance, with your mastermind, being able to come together, for those group calls and be able to sit. And what I love about yours too is it was a small enough group to where your voice was always heard. It was a very close-knit group to where everybody was really learning off of each other. And it was just such a collaborative environment, which until you're in that space, you don't realize the value of it. The other thing I love about it too is that there's always somebody in the mastermind that's a few steps ahead of you, which is really powerful. I think sometimes even having a coach, you can even subconsciously say to yourself, even if you have the coach, like, oh, yeah, well, that's easier for her to say because, she's like, she's making it, right? She's making tons of money and she's doing amazing, right? But being able to even be in a collaborative space where people in the group that are even a little bit further you, it just seems a little bit more doable, right? Because they're just maybe a few steps ahead of you. They're not 20 steps ahead of you, right? Or whatever. And so I think that part of it can be very empowering to be able to even be in service to other people who are maybe you're 10 steps ahead of. And number one, it's empowering. And I think it's also be, like I said, it's great to be in service. But then also I think what that experience did for me was that it also gave me a little bit of confidence too. So I was like, oh dang, I actually know more than I think I do. And then that's not to say like, oh, look at him, they're not doing, but I mean, it was like when I would speak and there'd be questions, I'd be like, oh, where did that come from? I actually know more than I think I do. So for me, a mastermind, that's why I love it so much, is really just, collaboratively how much you can learn from that experience.
And I think too, for like, especially for coaches, like it makes you a better coach. Any
100%.
mastermind, whether I have been in one or even when I've just hosted them, because I've had, I think, 3 or 4 iterations of a mastermind that I've hosted, and I've done them in so many different ways. I've had year-long ones, I've had 6 months ones, I've had virtual ones, I've had in-person ones. Like there's so many different ways that you can test and kind of skin the cat, so to speak. But I think no matter what, in all the iterations, a huge takeaway is like it actually makes me a better leader, a better entrepreneur, a better coach because of some of the things that you just said. Like so much of maybe you not being in the smartest person in the room. There's so much benefit to that, but it's
Mhm.
more so than this idea of like I'm going to come in here and this one person is going to teach me everything she knows and then that's going to be the magic pill that I need in order. It's so much more than that. It's like the
Mhm.
validation that you receive to know how brilliant you are and how much you do give to the world and you do give to your people. You get to take that back into your communities and share that, what you do learn and how empowering that is, nuances and things that it's like, I think it's so easy for us to get lost in just our day to day of how we show up and our day to day and how things run. And like, oh, well, I've done it this way, so it must be that way. And then hearing kind of completely different takes to maybe getting to the same result is really fascinating. And so I love that you talked about just the intimacy of that and what that can really build. I would love to know from you if there were anyone out there that was like, well, what really is like why would you say that that is better than like one-on-one coaching? Or if they're trying to me, I think it's actually comparing apples to oranges. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like a dentist to a doctor. But what was kind of your take of like, the benefits that we've also heard, but really how that's going to, I think, more strengthen the relationship and the networking side that I think is so important that you don't necessarily get in just a one-to-one coaching capacity.
Well, first of all, what I'll say is I think that being an entrepreneur in itself can be a very lonely experience. If you are not in a type of environment that is that, that mastermind or that group environment, it can feel very lonely. There's that piece of it. But also exactly what you said is about being able to like network. And so not only learning from each other, but man, I've had some beautiful like collaborations that have actually brought me money to come out of masterminds, right? One of the beautiful things about being in a mastermind is being able to connect with other people even that are not in your niche that would complement what you do, and being able to brainstorm about maybe some different business ideas that could come out of that. So I mean, I've done launches where I've partnered up with somebody in my mastermind and it's brought me income. So I mean, that just talking from a straight up ROI, I mean, right there, that's great. I also think too, going back to this whole, it can be a lonely space, being able to network and like there's something, it's almost like as soon as you join a network or as soon as you join a mastermind, it's like everybody's connecting and we're finding each other on social media and all of that. And, it can be, it is very encouraging and very powerful to have cheerleaders cheering you on. Anytime you post something on social media, you've got somebody who's maybe reposting it or they're, liking your stuff. I mean, this is how we all start to support each other. So I think having that support in the online space is also really helpful. And so I would say really for me, those are like the top three benefits, of just the mastermind part, not even talking about, I mean, if you'll give me time, I'm going to go on forever about how beneficial the one-on-one piece of it is with you. Okay. So like that we can get to that, Julie. I would say just the straight up mastermind part, it's definitely having those collaborative, from the learning standpoint. It's also having those collaborations from just a growth standpoint, even, monetarily. And then just that support too, like even when the coach is out of the room, right, being able to message somebody in the mastermind, voice note somebody and be like, hey, oh my god, this is what's going on, da 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 da, and being able to almost have little mini kind of coaching sessions with each other outside of the actual mastermind walls, where a coach is facilitating.
I love that. And that was going to kind of be my next thing. So as I mentioned, I mean, masterminds are all set up differently. That's why I always talk about like you really have to find one that is the space is cultivated in a way in which it actually serves you. And so I've done masterminds where I don't offer one-on-one support, and then I've had iterations where I do. And so it's now something that is offered to members if they do want to tap into that. And my first time trying that was actually last year with yours, and I ended up loving it. And it allowed me to really build relationships. The women that decided I want the mastermind and I want this one-on-one component with Julie, just the relationship that we were able to build. And just from my perspective as a coach and as a leader, the way that I was able to really like root in and support this one person just as a human being was really, really special. And so I would love to hear what your experience kind of with that was, with us being able to, and I love to do it through Voxer, even though some people are like, what is this walkie-talkie app? And I don't want to use it. I'm like, don't hate on Voxer until you try it, because it can actually be very addictive. But I would love to hear what your experience through that was.
Well, first of all, the fact that you said you loved it after you finished coaching me through Voxer is like a Christmas miracle because listen, people, I'm one of those ones where I maximized my time with Julie through Voxer. Okay. Like we were talking almost daily. I mean, seriously. So I will say this, the mastermind piece of it, it was absolutely amazing. But the one-on-one in addition to that was absolutely freaking priceless. I can tell you that, and I've shared with you, with this, like what I learned about myself as an entrepreneur like through our one-on-one time together was just incredible because number one, sometimes take the things that we talked about in the mastermind and then bring it into our own private space and really drill down into how I can apply that into my business. Because one of the things with the mastermind is people are at all different levels, right? And so, what I really appreciated then is being able to take some of these ideas and concepts and things that came up in the mastermind and being able to go offline with you and be like, okay, now, so what do we think of this? And let's bang out some ideas. But in addition, it was having a coach in my back pocket. It was anytime something came up for me about anything, I could reach out to you. And one of the beautiful things about the way that you coach is you're the perfect combination. You are like the strategic part of it and so well versed in the strategy. But then, being an entrepreneur is not just strategy. We need to be able to talk through those mindset blocks and how do we get through those. And you're really, really good at coaching through those pieces as well. And so for me, just having a mentor, I mean, that's what I, think of you as for sure. And still to this day, having a mentor that I could come to like with anything and be like, this is what's going on today. I don't even know. And sometimes it was strategy. Sometimes I was like, hey, I've got this landing page and I'm not sure what to do about this. Like, what do you think? Or sometimes I was like, Julie, I'm going into scarcity mode. Like, I haven't had a sale in, 2 weeks, whatever. Let's talk this through. Or, hey, I just hired this ad agency and this is what's going on. I don't know. What should I do about this? Let's talk about it. I mean, just the peace and the confidence that it gave me from being able to have that one-on-one access to you, because I trusted you and I trust you because you're where I want to be. It was priceless. It was awesome.
And I loved it too. It kind of reminded me of like insurance, right? Like it's not that you need it every minute of every day to live your life,
Right.
but it's like if crap hits the fan, and you get in a car accident or someone like rams you from behind, or you don't know which, route to take to get somewhere the easiest and fastest, like it's going to be there for you. And I think that that's really the more that people kind of look at that one-on-one support, not so much of like, what can I get from this and how can I just like suck everything out of this until the end, but really it's like, how can I make this work for me for the long run? And how is this helping me and supporting me become a better visionary, a better entrepreneur, a better leader in how I approach things? And I think that that is really what I loved about it too, is that it wasn't just about, well, this is how you do this and this is how you do that and this is how, but it's like, how do we actually empower you to step in to lead bigger and greater and with more capacity and compassion for what it is that you're wanting to call in? And I think that that is just why I love it so much and why I'm going to continue to offer it, because it really does complement the work that already happens in the mastermind so beautifully.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, that's 1000%. And one of the other things too that I want to mention that is also so valuable is the way that you peel back the curtain on what's going on in your own business for those who are in the mastermind. Like that is incredible. So just being able to like hear from you, like what's working in your business, what's not working, like how did that launch go? How did this go? Like that honestly was really, really powerful too. Like, hey, this is this, you would even get as granular, which I so appreciated, being like, this is the email that I sent out to, like this is my strategy behind this. This is what I was thinking. This is how it went. This is where I did it. And you were very honest. Hey, this hit and this did not hit. And this is why we think. And it's really just like sharing the behind the scenes, being privy to that information was also super helpful for me.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, that's how I think and I work.
Yeah.
And it's like, if someone can give me like an asset that they actually used, and then they tell me this is what worked, this is what different didn't, this is what I would do differently. And then I can take that and actually like copy, paste, tweak, optimize, and apply it to
Yes.
my own business. Like that is the cliff notes. Like you
Yes.
can't, I don't think you can put a price tag on that, in my opinion.
I
That's
agree.
what's always helped me the most. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I love you
Thank
so much.
you.
We
I
could
love
just talk
you.
all day.
I know.
But I want you to share where our incredible, beautiful, brilliant listeners can find you if they want to reach out to you after this episode. And for those listening, as always, if anything resonated with you today, if there was anything that just made you feel seen, heard, not alone, any aha moments, please make sure to screenshot this episode, tag me, tag Amber, share with us, slide into our DMs, let us know what resonated with you, because that just allows us to continue to do the work that we do in best service to you. So Amber, if you can share your handles, your website, anything new that's coming up, if you want to direct anybody to anything, especially with the holidays and the new year coming up.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So you can find me over on Instagram. I'm at msambershaw.com. So missambershaw.com. I also have a private Facebook group that I would love to share with the listeners. I'll have that in the show notes. And this is a private Facebook group for working moms who really are looking to achieve sustainable weight loss. And this is a free Facebook group. So lots of valuable tips in there. I go live every week. So lots, it's just a great community. So would love to see you in there. And then I also have a podcast. It's called the Wellness Revolution Podcast. And you can find that Apple, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you again, Amber. I love you so much, and
Thank
can't wait
you.
for the world to hear more of all the goodness that you have to share.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.